You've probably heard someone say, we're just brains and bodies, biological machines running on chemistry. And then there's the other camp. No, the mind is something totally separate, an independent spiritual entity that controls the body, that lives apart from the body. 2,400 years ago, neuroscience, AI research, philosophy of mind, we're still stuck between these two options. But what if I told you that one of the greatest thinkers in history already found a way out? Not a compromise, not some hand-wavy middle ground, a genuinely different framework that dissolves the problem entirely. This is a course on Aristotle's On the Soul, and it's going to change the way you think about thinking. Here's a question. You're walking down the street, you see a cat, and something in you immediately goes, "Hey there, little fellow." You recognize a living being. You respond to it. Not because you ran a calculation, not because some ghost whispered instructions. Something in you, your soul, Aristotle would say, is already reaching out toward another living thing. Now, what just happened there? What is that capacity? That's the question that this course is built around. And Aristotle's answer is strange, precise, and honestly, kind of beautiful. So in this course, we're going through the full text of Aristotle's On the Soul across 6 lectures, and a 7th lecture that will be on his little text on memory. We start where Aristotle starts, with life itself. What does it mean for something to be alive? A plant takes in nutrients and reproduces. An animal perceives the world and moves through it. And a human being thinks, speaks, and deliberates. Aristotle builds from the ground up. He shows that the soul isn't some mysterious extra ingredient added to a body. The soul is what the body is doing when it is alive. An eye that can't see really isn't an eye, right? It's just tissue shaped like one. And a hand that can't grasp isn't a hand. So the activity is the thing. That's the foundation. And then we go deeper. One of the most fascinating parts of this course is the deep dive into perception. Aristotle doesn't treat the senses as merely passive receivers, like cameras feeding data into a central processor. He shows that perception is an active transformation. So when you see red, your vision becomes red, without turning into the red thing. When you hear a note, the activity of hearing and the activity of sound are the same event. The gap between you and the world, the one that modern philosophy kind of obsesses over, Aristotle shows it was never really there. And then there is touch. Aristotle argues that touch is the most fundamental sense. Every animal, he claims, perceives, has touch, and in humans, the extraordinary precision of our touch is directly connected to our intelligence. That's not a metaphor, he means it structurally. We even get into things like phantom limbs. Why does a missing hand still hurt? What does that tell us about what the body actually is? These lectures connect Aristotle's account to thinkers like Merleau-Ponty and show that some of the sharpest insights in modern phenomenology were already present 24 centuries ago. The course builds to what I think is the most profound puzzles in all of philosophy. Aristotle shows that thinking grows out of perception. Perception grows out of nutrition. There is a continuous arc from the simplest living activity to the highest act of contemplation. But, and here's the twist, thinking is also fundamentally unlike everything that came before it. So what I mean is that perception always has an organ. The eye sees, the ear hears, but thinking? Aristotle argues that the intellect has no bodily organ, not in the sense that perceptive organs have, or sense perception has an organ. So, given this, Aristotle thinks that it has to be unmixed with the body, because if it were tied to a specific organ, it couldn't think about everything. So here we're getting into some really fine distinctions about what it means to think. So it would be limited, the way an eye is limited to the visible things. Thinking is not limited in the same way. It has no object that is thinkable that provides a barrier or limit to it, or an obstacle for it. And yet, Aristotle's point, thinking cannot exist without the body. It depends on perception, on imagination, on a living, breathing human being. So then, once again, what is thinking? How does something universal, the capacity to know anything, live inside of something particular? You, me, a specific human being with a specific life and history, and so on. That is where this course takes you. Not to a neat answer, to the question itself, and I think one that matters. And I'll be honest, you can find summaries of Aristotle anywhere. You can read the Wikipedia article in 10 minutes. You can chat with AI and get all the information you would ever need. But this course does something different. We read the actual text. We follow Aristotle's own method, starting from what is familiar, working through the difficulties, arriving at something you couldn't even have seen from the outside. We engage with the Greek terminology, not to be academic, but because Aristotle chose his words with surgical precision, and the usual translations flattened them. So this matters right now, because the questions Aristotle is asking are our questions. What is consciousness? Can a machine think? What is the relationship between the brain and the mind? Are we continuous with animals or fundamentally different? The modern debate keeps circling the same impasses that Aristotle diagnosed and resolved in ways people have never encountered. So whether you're into philosophy, cognitive science, AI, or you just want to understand yourself a little bit better, this is worth your time. So, 7 lectures, one of the greatest works in history of philosophy, a framework for understanding life, perception, and thought that is as relevant today as it was in ancient Athens or ancient Macedonia, where Aristotle used to spend most of his time. The course opens March 21st for enrollment, and 8 weeks of live seminars will begin mid-April. So As per usual with our courses, we have a digital only version where you get access to pre-recorded lectures. But I would recommend you join us for the live seminars, because there you get to discuss the ideas and questions you might have with me and with your peers, and usually that's where the magic happens in our courses, in the seminars, where we wrestle with the arguments and with the ideas themselves. So with all that said, I hope to see you there. Thank you, and have a nice day.